Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Jeshua D. Knoll podcast. Today I'm talking with Lee Huffman. He's a senior travel expert at RewardExpert.com. At RewardExpert, he writes about the latest trends in credit card rewards and teaches people how to travel for free using miles and points. Thanks for coming on, Lee.
Hey, it's great to be here, and I definitely look forward to our conversation.
Me too. So your whole career, essentially, your livelihood is traveling and doing that with credit card points, with miles, and then sharing that knowledge with other people. When did you start traveling? When did you get involved in that? Have you always been one who kind of enjoys traveling the country / the world? Did you do it a lot when you were a kid, or when did you get into this?
Luckily, my parents were really into traveling growing up. We used to do a lot of road trips to go see national parks, driving to see family that lived back east, and just getting out and away from the house, And so it was a great introduction to be able to see a lot of the country. And now that I'm a father, I mean, you're a father as well. And I've been of the mindset, what I want to do is I want to make sure that I can show my kids the world. And the way to do that is by using the airline miles and hotel points to make it affordable. My kind of approach is, as a parent, your job is to make the best humans possible out of your kids. And I think by exposing them to different cultures, different ways of life, different ways of thinking, even though they may not always agree with those other ways of thinking and ways of life, by at least exposing them to them, they can understand it a little bit better and form their own opinions.
Yeah, exposure to different ways of life, I think, is key, even for parents who don't travel the world, exposing them to different mindsets, different thought processes and lifestyles, just for the sake of exposure, so that they can think through things and not be sheltered from other perspectives so that they can't handle that when they're older. I think that's really cool. I think a lot of parents out there are probably wondering, whether they read your blog or listening to the podcast, how does a lifestyle affect your relationship with your kids or even their education? Like, what does that look like? How does that work for you guys? What kind of system do you have?
Well, I will say it was a little bit easier when we lived in California. We just moved to Nashville a couple of weeks ago. And when we lived in California, my kids were in private schools. So it was a little bit easier to take them out because I was the one writing the checks for school. But public schools, they get funded based on attendance in a lot of cases. So if you take them out of school for more than a few days here and there, they get quite upset. So we're adjusting to that new mindset here, but that's during the school year. But in the summertime, I'm really looking forward to it because now that I'm kind of location independent for what I do, I don't have to be in a set place. We can pretty much travel all summer long and go explore the country, go international and explore other countries. And I can just take a few hours here and there, do a little writing, talk to a few people on podcasts and handle the quote unquote work I need to do. And then the rest of the time, just spend more time with my kids and just explore the world. Luckily, my wife is very understanding, and she unfortunately doesn't have that much vacation time, but she's totally cool with me taking the kids out and just making them a little bit more well-rounded.
That's good. How often or how long has the complete location independence been a factor? Is that a fairly recent thing, like since you moved from California, or has that been a thing for a few years?
Well, before I moved from California, I used to work for a regional bank in the finance department. And so when I did that, banks are oftentimes pretty generous with their vacation policies. And then banks also are known to take just about every federal holiday possible off. So I
know.
So I had a lot of vacation time, but even when I had that vacation time at work, I still had way more than my wife did, and so I started taking the children with me on different trips. For example, I've taken my son to Sweden, Grand Caymans, so snowboarding, in the local mountains, things like that. And then my daughter, I've taken her to visit family on the East Coast, and just a father-daughter trip to Milwaukee. So it's good to be able to spend that time one-on-one with them, because I don't know how your daughter is, but my kids, mama comes first. I'm a distant second in their mind. And so, so by having that one-on-one time with them, I think is building a stronger bond between, the kids and me. And, I just really love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome that it kind of, um, I don't want to say deepens. It's just it's a different relationship, and the fact that you're able to spend more time with them through that is what deepens that. I think that's really cool
Hmm.
that you're able to do that, and that it doesn't get in the way of anything regarding their education. That's something that you consciously think through. Because I think for parents who want to travel more, that's a concern that they have for themselves. Is how am I going to manage their education? Is this going to impact our relationship? Are they going to be comfortable with this? And I think it sounds like you know your kids comfort level really well. And while you're pushing them to grow and get out of their comfort zone, you're not like overdoing it to where you're just taking the trip for yourself. You're doing it for their sake in a lot of ways as part of their educational
No,
experience.
exactly.
That's really cool to hear.
Exactly. Like there's a couple of different ways that we approach it. First off, even when they were at the private school, we talked to the teachers ahead of time to let them know that, hey, we're going to be out a couple of days here and there. Um, and is there any homework we can take with us? Obviously you got a lot of dead time when you're on the plane or train or automobile. And so
Right.
give them something to do there that's going to be productive in their mind. And then one of the things that I started doing a couple of years ago after we came back from Hawaii is I made my son present our trip to his class. And so one, it was something that got him more used to public speaking. And that's something that whether you're a child or an adult, you can't get enough practice public speaking.
Oh, absolutely.
And then so it's getting him more comfortable up there speaking, but also having him think through the thoughts he's going to speak when he's talking to them as he's explaining the pictures, hopefully inspiring the children and the teacher to travel more. And maybe when the kids go home, they'll talk to their parents and say, "Hey, Timothy went here," and hopefully it's not like one of those negative things where it's like, "Oh, there goes Timmy talking about the trips he's doing again." But instead, it's more of, hey, I'm really interested in this place, or I'm really interested in here. Getting the kids involved with the vacation planning is a great way to just teach them a lot of the life skills that we need to teach them.
Absolutely. I think that if he shares your mindset when it comes to travel, if he's all about the experience and the adventure, and if he understands on any level the growth that he's getting out of that, it can't be something where he's, like showing off the trips, your kids are feeling bad about it or anything like that. It sounds like if he has your outlook on it, he's very much sharing an experience and providing value for the kids while he's also kind of growing in that skill set of public speaking and sharing and inspiring himself.
Exactly. One thing that, like, sorry to cut you off, but one of the things that
That
we
was good.
that we also do is, again, not everybody's able to travel. So what we try to do is we try to bring back some money from the other countries. So it's more of a teaching lesson also, right? So you
Right.
can see how the other countries are a little bit different. And then it's not like a big thing, but he had about 20 kids in his class. So what we would do is I would set aside $20 in the travel budget for that trip, and we would try to find something that we can bring back to the class where each of the kids got something. And so whether it's a little rock or a postcard or whatever, it was something that they were able to kind of touch and feel with the trip as well. And so I think
Hmm.
it's one thing to hear things and to talk about them, but to be able to actually touch the money and see the money, or see like a rock or some sort of souvenir or whatever from that destination makes it hit home a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a connection to the place. It's a physical reminder of this is a real place that I could really go someday. Real people live here.
Hmm.
Real people live their whole lives here. This is a part of my world. Even if it doesn't feel like it because maybe it feels so far away.
Sure,
This is
sure.
a part of the world that I live on, and you can experience that in a way just from holding something from that place. I went to China recently and tried to bring back some yak jerky, but I didn't think that through very much because they took it away at customs. The lady, I declared it because I felt bad not declaring it, and the lady said, "Did you buy this in Norway?" And I said no, and she just dunked it in the trash can.
Oh,
It was an experience,
yeah.
but I had some kwai, I had some Chinese ones in my wallet still, so I got to bring something back.
Oh, yeah. It's one
Um,
of those things where it's great to explore other countries, but you have to remember that other countries are not the U.S.
yes.
And things that are okay here are not okay. in them, and some things that
Have
are
you
okay,
had any
and some things that are
weird
okay
cultural
there
clash?
aren't okay here, so.
Right. Have you had any weird like cultural clashing moments during your travels, or anything that just caught you off guard culturally or socially when you're traveling different countries?
Nothing that ultimately really stands out. Like for example, we went to Paris when my son was a little bit over 2 years old. That was like a dream trip for my wife to go back to Paris. And while we were there, you hear all these stories about, oh, the French are rude, the French are this, or the French are that. Every person we talked to was actually extraordinarily nice. We had a fantastic trip. Literally, the only time I encountered somebody that was really rude is I just had a kind of we were there for about 12 days, and I just had a hankering for a McDonald's hamburger, right? Just want a little touch of
Mm-hmm.
comfort from home. Um,
Yeah, I hear you.
and the workers at McDonald's near the Louvre, that was actually the only time we actually had somebody that was rude. And
Huh.
and basically, like,
That's
I'm kind of picky with food, and I just wanted a plain hamburger, right? And
Mhm.
they basically just looked at me and said, "No, we won't do that." We, like, what do you mean? Just don't put anything on it. And I'm like, I'm asking you to do less work, not more work, but just
Right.
less.
Our lettuce is going to go badly. We need to put it on the burger.
And
We got too
yeah,
much.
and they just totally shut me down. And of the entire 12 days we were there, that was the only time somebody was rude. So
On that note, one time I met a girl who was from Belgium, and we were hanging out quite a bit. This was when I was in high school, and she was very nice when she moved here. And after a year of being immersed in American culture, I don't know what happened, but she was like chain smoking on my couch and putting out cigarettes on my coasters. It was a transformation of character. Seeing something, it was a whole different
oh
person,
wow.
man. It was crazy.
Super not
So if
cool.
you haven't had a lot of, yeah, super not cool. If you haven't had a lot of cultural clash moments or anything like that, apart from your McDonald's experience, what have been some of the biggest challenges in traveling as often as you do, or kind of the way that you do, to kind of prepare people, or to address any concerns people might have for themselves? What do you think are some common concerns and ones that you've struggled with yourself?
Well, I mean, I'm really big on personal finance. So I think one of the things
Mm-hmm.
that there's a couple different ways to approach it. One is you have to be able to afford it, right? And you don't want to go into debt for a vacation. So that's why, to me, like,
Right.
airline miles and hotel points are such a valuable tool to enable me and families and people I talk to travel more. And I just hate to think that you're paying, like, you get into debt, you go into debt, and then next thing you know, you're paying for the vacation you took 3 years ago, and you're still paying it for it today. I definitely don't
Right.
want that type of situation. The other thing is that if you're going to be gone for, say, a week or 2 weeks or whatever, you also kind of got to automate your life a little bit to make sure your bills are paid, and make sure that everything back home is still functioning properly while you're gone.
Yeah, for sure. That was one thing I experienced when I left the country for 2 weeks, even, just making sure that my bank account was in order, that my car payment was made, things like that. That you just usually don't have to think that much about, because you just do it when it's time. But if you're gone for long enough, it matters a lot to make sure that things are
Yeah, so
automated.
there's a couple of things like that, and then on top of that, it's better when you travel to not go in with like preconceived notions, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, I heard all those horror stories about French people. I mean, even traveling domestically, we have like more of a regional differences, here, right? And
Right.
the first time I went to New York, one of my coworkers said, "Oh, you know, you better be careful. Don't you dare go out late at night, because you California people are soft, and you can't handle, and you don't know what's going to happen." Man,
Were you from?
man,
Go
we
ahead.
had a great time. I mean, we were out till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Felt completely safe the entire time. Obviously, you got to still kind of keep your head on a swivel a little bit, whether you're in the U.S. or in other countries. Just don't put yourself into a bad position, right? Uh,
Right.
I mean, if you're going to drink, have a few drinks, but don't get plastered and roll out of the bar and try to walk home at 4 o'clock in the morning by yourself. Something bad's probably going to happen to you. Whether
Yeah.
that, I mean, that pretty much goes for anything you do. But just kind of be cool, don't don't be the quote unquote American tourist when you're out and about. Just go there, be open to exploring things, and you're just going to have a much better travel experience.
Right. Yeah. Be adaptable. Be ready to kind of immerse
Hmm.
yourself in the culture around you
And
for
it, and
sure.
it,
Also,
sorry, and it helps if you at least make an
mhm,
attempt to learn a little bit of the language. Just literally
yeah,
just Google Translate a couple phrases like please, thank you, and a couple other phrases like that that you can just literally keep in a piece of paper in your wallet if you have to, and try to show that you are making an attempt to learn a little bit about their culture, and that'll go a long ways towards kind of breaking down any sort of barriers between the two of you.
for sure. And have you read about the Pixel Buds that will like do Google Translate in real time when you're talking to somebody?
No, I haven't seen that.
That seems to me like the most American touristy gear I've ever seen in my life, because you're going to be trying to talk to somebody and this robot voice is going to be coming out of your earbuds. It's going to sound like the Google Assistant. And you're so
Yeah.
disconnected from the people around you. That's the most touristy thing. So I agree completely that just learning a little bit of the language, learning a little bit about the culture, it's going to make you feel more comfortable, first of
Hmm.
all, but it's also going to make everyone around you a lot more easygoing and considerate, and they're going to appreciate
Sure.
that for
Sure.
sure. How do you get, like, I know a lot of it is probably budget minded, with the miles and the points. How do you choose where to go usually? Or is it just, I'm interested in this place, I'm going to pursue that?
Well, there's a saying um, about, I'm trying to remember the exact wording of it, but um, I want, oh man, I just totally lost it. But it basically is saying that I want to go everywhere. It's on the list. Um,
Mm,
and it's just, for me, the way I kind of approach things is because I use airline miles and hotel points, and then I own a timeshare. And so a lot of times when you're in that world, you're dealing with availability. And so sometimes the place you want to go to at the time you want to go to on the exact flight or exact dates and exact times isn't available. And so you either need to be flexible with your dates, or you need to be flexible with your destinations or the routing that you take. And so the way I look at it is I try to have like a top 10 list of places I want to go. And based on the vacation time that I have and that my wife has, that I go, okay, let's look at number one. Here's the dates we want to go. Can I find something that's available in the way we want to travel and the places we want to stay at? Can I make that all happen? And if I can't, then okay, I'll go to number two. And it's not like I'm going, oh, I wanted to go to Paris and now I'm going to Boise, Idaho. It's more of I wanted to go to Paris. That wasn't available, but we're going to Copenhagen instead, or I'm going to Greece instead. And it's still an awesome location. It's still a place I really want to go to. It may not be the
right.
number one place, but it's still basically just kind of checking off that box of places I want to go to.
It's a new experience
Yeah,
regardless.
and so if I can do that, and it means that yeah, I didn't get to go to my number one place this year, but I was able to go two, three, and six. And I still had an awesome year and traveled to amazing places and just met some fantastic people.
For sure. And then you've still one's still on the list. It's not crossed off, this is never going to happen. It's still on the
Yeah.
list. The list is still there. It's just that you took a little bit of a detour, got some different experiences than maybe you were
Hmm.
expecting, and that's absolutely
Yeah.
fine,
It'll all eventually happen. It's just a matter of which order.
Right, right, for sure. I think that's one thing too is you've got a system. You've got you know where you want to go. You try to make sure you know how it's going to happen. I think people get intimidated by that, by the idea of trying to organize their travel. And first of all, people get intimidated because they think traveling is more expensive than it
Yeah.
is, or that it has to be more expensive than it is. They get intimidated by that and the organization, the planning of a trip, because some people they don't tend towards that kind of mindset where you can plan an event for yourself, or you can plan out a week or a month or a year. Um, So I want to hear you talk a little bit about like because you teach people how to travel for free using miles and points. I want to hear a little bit about what that process looks like for you. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of value on your blog, on your website where you talk about that, but just kind of more of the logistics of how you go through that process, of how you kind of got into that, how often you travel with that. Just kind of the specifics of that, because I think people, even though you're talking about being able to travel for free, will still be intimidated because they think, oh, I can't do that. I don't know how to quote unquote game the system or anything like that.
Sure. And I will say that a lot of times, airlines and hotels and banks make it a little difficult, right? Like I was saying, that sometimes the flights you want to go on for the days you want to go aren't available, right? And so they'll tell you that you can go to some place you don't want to go on a different day, but the places you want to go may not always be available. So they sometimes put these roadblocks in place where people do give up, and unfortunately, that happens far too often. But the other thing is that sometimes people just do things in a more haphazard way. They don't really have like a plan in place. They don't say, okay, I want to go to this destination a year from now, or 6 months from now, or some point in the future, and they're not saying, okay, here's where I want to go, and then from there, trying to figure out what airlines actually fly there. Because like I love Southwest Airlines; they're my favorite domestic airline. But if
was that
just because one, they're relatively inexpensive. And then two, I have the Southwest Companion Pass. So wherever I fly, my family flies for free. Well, not my family, sorry, but my companion, which is my wife, she gets to fly for free. And so it's a huge savings for me and my family by having that.
Is that anywhere you go, anywhere you fly with them?
Anywhere I fly, whether I'm paying cash or using rewards for that flight, then my designated companion gets to fly for free. All I got to do is pay for the taxes on the flight.
You're talking about saving hundreds of dollars just doing that, potentially.
Thousands. depends on how often you fly, right? So, but the problem with Southwest is they're a domestic airline, and they have a little bit of exposure to international, where they have a little exposure to international, where they're going to Costa Rica, they're going to Mexico, Aruba, and the Caribbean. But if you want to go to South America, if you want to go to Asia or Europe, that's not the airline for you.
What would be the airline for me if I want to go to Portugal today? Not today, but I want to go to Portugal. What would be a better airline potentially if I'm trying to still save a little bit of money?
Really, realistically, it's going to be the big three: American, United, or Delta. Those are the airlines that they're going to either fly there themselves, or they have partner airlines that will allow you to use their miles to fly on their partner. And so
it's like how hotels have their partnership programs, where you have, you every hotel. I used to work at a Best Western, and people would constantly come in and ask if we were partnered with various hotel chains because they wanted to use their points from a different hotel. So airlines would do a similar thing sometimes. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So, for example, I've used American Airline miles to fly on Iberia Airlines. You can use them to fly to Asia. There's a lot of different airlines that partner with each of the big three, and there's generally anywhere from like 13 to 30 airlines that each of those three partner with. And so based on that, even though the big one may not fly, then one of the partner airlines most often will.
Very cool. Very cool. I admire that kind of collaboration on their part. That's obviously there's profit for that on their end, but it's very helpful for the customer who wants to travel further, who maybe wants to travel somewhere with the same airline, but they don't reach that, so they have to partner with a different one. That's really cool how they have that system in place. So as far as hotels go, since you are all about reward points, would you not recommend using Airbnb when you're traveling internationally because you're trying to build up points with different hotel chains, or how do you handle that?
Well, Personally, I haven't stayed on an Airbnb yet. I have a lot of
Okay.
airline miles and hotel points, and then I have the timeshare week. So I haven't
Right.
stayed there because I just haven't had a need to. But I really love the concept of being able to have more space and being
Mhm.
able to stay and travel like a local, because Airbnb, for people who don't know, they're essentially, it's either you're renting out a room in somebody's house, or you're actually renting out their entire house or an apartment or condo, whatever the case may be. But essentially, you are, instead of staying in a hotel that is sometimes hundreds of rooms, you're staying in somebody's house, and you have access to their kitchen, you have access to their backyard, and their living room. And one of the problems of traveling, especially if you have children, is if you're just in a small little hotel room that's 15 by 15, and it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and it's time for your kid to go to bed, but you're an adult and you want to stay up for another hour or two. You're
Right.
kind of in a tough situation, right? Because you
Yeah, for
you got
sure. You want to?
yeah, you got to
I want to order some Domino's. It's 11 at night. I want Domino's. My daughter's asleep next to me. I don't want.
yeah, and so
I'm trying to watch Stranger Things. You know.
exactly, and so you want to be able to keep the lights on for yourself, because maybe you want to read, or maybe you want to work on the computer, or just kind of
Mhm.
plan out the day for tomorrow. Um, and then, but you can't, because you got to turn off the lights, so that way your kid can actually fall asleep. So that's a problem with kind of the traditional hotel rooms. That's why a lot of times when I'm traveling with my family, I'll stay at other hotel chains, like that. Maybe they're not like the luxury type of hotel chain, like a Waldorf Astoria or Ritz Carlton, that I would aspire to try to stay in it whenever I can. I'll stay in something like a Residence Inn or an Embassy Suites that has a separate living area apart from the bed. And these are more like mid-tier hotels, but they're still nice and they still have some good benefits. And um, especially when you're traveling, having the access to like free breakfast is a wonderful benefit. And
Mhm.
and so those are oftentimes the hotels I end up staying at when I'm with my family. And the Airbnb kind of fits that mold as well, because you have space, and you can put your kid down to sleep, or you're an adult and you just need some alone time. You need like some space, and you go, okay, kids, you guys can be out here on watching TV. I'm gonna go take a nap in the bedroom, so that way I don't have to hear, you watch SpongeBob, or any of the other cartoons that the kids want to watch for the 100th time.
Right, right, yeah, yeah, man. I watched a SpongeBob episode recently with my kid, and this is a little off topic, but I watched a SpongeBob episode recently with my kid, and I can't believe I used to watch that when I was a kid. I couldn't stand it. It was ridiculously annoying and kind of gross.
Oh yeah, no, it
It caught me off
it's like
guard,
you're
man.
surprised what the kids like these days. And as a parent, you kind of gotta, uh, even if you don't really want to watch it, you got to watch it sometimes, just to make sure it's not doing, talking about things that you don't want them to hear about. Or
Right. Yeah. You want to read the books if you can. You want to read the books before they do. You want to listen to the music before they do, just to kind of be that filter while you can, because you can't always be that. It's pretty early on in their childhood you can do that, and then you kind of have to loosen up a little bit more. So hopefully you can guide them well while you're being that filter.
exactly. Let me just step back for a second. So when you're talking about when we were talking about planning the trips and things like that, so
Hmm.
like I said, first off, you want to figure out where you want to go. And then two, you want to figure out the airlines that actually fly there. Like I said, Southwest doesn't fly to Europe. And then three, you want to figure out, like, in the exact city you want to travel, what hotel chains are there. And then from there, generally you're going to want to get the credit card that's affiliated with that hotel and that airline, so that way you can get some nice perks, possible upgrades in your hotel room, priority boarding, and free check bags on the airline that you're flying. And doing those things will actually save you quite a bit of money, because today, if you try to check a bag, it's $25 per person each way. So
Wow.
one flight with, say, you and your daughter, if both you check your bags, next thing you know, you spent $100 extra on top of your airplane ticket.
Yeah, maybe I wanted to go dancing.
Yeah.
Maybe I wanted to go to Starbucks twice.
Yeah, exactly. And just think, when you're thinking about your travel budget is, a lot of people, again, like we talked about earlier, a lot of people don't travel because they think they can't afford it. Well, if they
Right.
can't afford it generally, and then now all of a sudden you got another $100 in fees tacked on, now you really can't afford it.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to after hearing all this is that a lot of people think they can't travel when they really just don't know how to
Hmm.
travel effectively. I like the idea of planning it with the credit cards, which I hadn't thought of, and the airlines and the hotels. It's just a lot of
Hmm.
synchronization, trying to sync it all up. It's like the idea of buying all Google products for the synchronization, or all Microsoft products, something like that, but on a large scale, in the context of traveling, just to make sure that everything matches up in a way that's going to provide the most value for you as a traveler.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that we have at Reward Expert is we have some different tools that make things easier for people, because even people like me that do this all the time, we get tripped up too. We don't
Mm-hmm.
remember all the different rules. We don't remember what does this, what does that. So there's like three different tools that we use to make life easier for everybody. So if you like, say if you don't know what airline miles or hotel points to get, what we'll do is we have the Reward Expert trip tool where you say, I live, I forget what city do you live in?
I live in Missouri.
Okay. So say you want to fly out of Kansas City. So,
Mm-hmm.
and or St. Louis, one of those two airports. So you'll type in the code for that airport, and then you say you want to go to Belgium, or you want to go to Paris or whatever. You type in
Right.
the two airports or two cities you want to go to, and we'll tell you specifically which airline miles are going to be the cheapest to get you there. And so,
That's very
and
cool.
then basically we'll help create a path for you to be able to earn those miles and points to make that trip happen. So
Right. There's so much information that it's easy to get overwhelmed. So Reward Expert will provide you with kind of a more clear path, provide you with that guidance that you need, because you can, but it'd be very difficult to filter through, every potential path you want to take with the different hotels and credit card companies and airlines. A lot of that, you're taking a lot of that intimidation factor away by just providing that service.
exactly, exactly. And then the other thing is, we've talked about credit cards quite a bit. Credit cards aren't the only way to earn airline miles and hotel points. Um, we actually also have a shopping tool where, most of us, I mean, we're both dudes. We don't
Mm-hmm.
go to the mall. We barely go to the grocery store. Everything like that. My wife is on working this week in another state, so it's just me and the kids, and so the fridge is a little bit more bare, right? So like we don't go, we don't
Right,
go we don't
right.
go to the store, we don't do all that stuff. So but instead we shop online like a champ, right? And so
Amen.
going instead of going directly to one of the websites, maybe you're buying something, whether it's Staples or Kohl's or even grocery stores, all the different places you're going to buy things from. Instead of going directly to that website, go through a portal first and earn some miles and points. And if you do enough shopping that way, all you got to do is just make a one small tweak in the way that you're doing things, and then voila, you're earning a lot of miles and points to help you accelerate the opportunity to be able to go on free travel.
And that would be with airlines and hotels that have kind of affiliate links, like an Amazon affiliate link or something.
Yeah,
Is that kind of
essentially what
what
it
you're?
is yeah, they
Okay.
most airlines and hotels, they have what they call it shopping portals, and so they're getting some sort of kickback from the store that you're buying from. And so what they do is they kind of share in the bounty with you in the form of airline miles and hotel points, because they know they're going to eventually you're going to use those miles and points and spend it with them. So they're basically getting a double benefit, right? Um,
Right.
and then even if you don't have a trip in mind, there's also cash back. There's even cash back opportunities. There's times where I'm getting anywhere from like 3 to 6% cash back on my purchase. We
Mm-hmm.
just bought a home here in Nashville, and when you buy a home, you got a lot of a lot of empty space that you got to fill up. And we've been going to Lowe's and just bought a dining room table from Pier One. And instead of going directly to either one of those websites, I went through the shopping portal, and the RewardExpert shopping tool told me that in one case, You Promise was offering 5% cash back from Pier 1. And then I think Lowe's was offering like 3% cash back. So even though I love airline miles and hotel points, sometimes getting cash is the king.
Oh, for sure. And you could also, when I worked at Best Western, I had a bunch of Best Western points, and I spent them all at Starbucks. You can get gift cards a lot of times from hotels too. So if you're traveling and you need to buy food at a restaurant, or you need to get some coffee from Starbucks, something like that, and maybe a hotel you have points from is connected to those brands, and then you can just buy your food or buy whatever you need with those points as well to kind of support your trip even more with the points. At least that's something that I kind of think would be cool to do. I didn't really use it on a trip, that I would just drive 20 minutes, get a bunch of bags of coffee, bring them home. But it just seems like a cool idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's as you get further into looking at travel rewards, you'll be amazed at how they can kind of change your life and allow you to do a lot of things that you wouldn't think you could do.
Right. Because they want you to keep traveling. That's their business model, but that's a good thing for you.
Yeah. And the rewards, like the reason why they offer these lucrative rewards is they want you coming back to them. They don't want you going to their competitor.
Right. Which is fine for me, at least as a consumer, as someone who enjoys traveling. That's fine with me as long as the benefits are there, Otherwise, I'm just going to be trying to find the best deal. Yep. So if you can sway me to stay with one company just to get benefits out of it, then I'm absolutely going to do that.
For sure. And that's one of the things that I teach people a lot is that just because you have a credit card, and just because you have that card doesn't mean that you automatically renew it the next year. We all work hard for our money. And you don't want to just give a bank money just because you did last year. So, okay, here, I'm going to give you money in perpetuity. No. You got to earn my money. I had to earn my money. You got to earn my money. And so if the benefits that I'm getting from the card are not worth the money, that at least worth the same, if not more than what the annual fee I'm paying, guess what? You're out of my wallet, and I'm closing that card. So, and just because, they change the benefits sometimes even on an annual basis, because they're always playing with the tools, because banks are very good at earning money. And so what you want to do is evaluate it every year to ensure that things that got you there the first time are still there this time around.
Right. And do airlines and hotel companies both kind of do something similar, where they'll change on a yearly basis or seasonal basis? They'll change kind of the policies that maybe you would have signed up with them for in the first place? Yeah,
there's in the world that I kind of revolve in, they call that a devaluation. And so maybe this year, the hotel that you really like is in a category 4. And it's 20,000 points or 25,000 points or whatever the number of points is that it is based on the hotel chain that it's with. Now next year, because that hotel is really popular, they bump it up to a category 5. So now it's 30,000 points.
Right.
And so they play around. They play around, and so that's why.
Is that something that you?
That's what I was just going to say. That's why I recommend people follow sites like ours, other sites that are on the travel world, where we kind of show you what's going on in the travel world. That way you don't have to kind of keep up with it on a daily basis. Just whenever it's time for you to plan your next trip, then think of us, come out, see what we have to offer, and then we'll show you what's going on and help you make the right decision.
Right, because a lot of people aren't, thinking about, as nice as it sounds, a lot of people aren't rationally or realistically considering traveling 24/7 and kind of immersing themselves in that world. Travel is just kind of a part of their life, or at least they would like it to be. So you're kind of breaking down that knowledge barrier and just kind of taking the stress of that situation away. It sounds like you've addressed really well kind of the two major concerns that I think people have, which is affordability and then just the huge learning curve and not knowing how to travel effectively. So if it's okay, we've talked a lot about kind of immersing yourself in culture, learning a little bit of language, the fact that staying in an Airbnb allows yourself to live more like a local. Would you want to talk about the upcoming podcast at all, since that's what a lot of it is going to be about, is just talking with locals to share the hidden gems of their city, so people who travel can kind of go beyond the basics. Would you want to talk a little bit about what that's going to look like? Maybe just some interesting things that you're learning so far through that experience?
Sure. Thank you, Joshua, for bringing that up. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I'm launching a podcast called We Travel There, where, just like you said, we're interviewing local experts so that we can go beyond like the tourist traps and live like a local when you travel those cities. And like you said, it's really about just having a more immersive experience. When I travel, I try not to rent a car if possible. We try to explore local eateries and just kind of shop local instead of giving the big corporations all our money. And that's really what the whole podcast is about. I mean, I was recording with a couple of people recently, and they weren't cities that I would normally think about as far as traveling to, but my God, like, there were some really interesting things. And now I'm going to make sure that we go see those cities, because you just hear of things that are, I don't know, maybe you don't hear about anything that's going on in that city, or you hear about some things like, okay, I've seen one zoo, I've seen them all. I'm sure they have a great zoo and they have a nice museum, but I can see that anywhere. I can see that in a city that has a lot more to offer. But by listening to these local experts, you're actually uncovering a lot more that's going on in these cities than you ever even knew. And so it's been a great learning experience for me. And hopefully it's going to inspire the listeners to travel more. And we're not just focusing on like big cities like New York and Paris and London. I have cities like Fresno, California, and Bentonville, Arkansas, and San Antonio, Texas, a little bit smaller cities, in addition to cities like Philadelphia and Los Angeles and Denver. But we have a mixture of cities all across the U.S. and even across the world, that whether you're in one side of the country, in a different country, it's a place that hopefully you can visit there even on a weekend, or it'll inspire you to make your next year's travel to one of these places.
Right, for sure. And even people who, like you said, aren't considering traveling out of the country or even across the country to some big city. I have a big heart for small towns. I think that if you're going somewhere new with the right motivation, with the right spirit, you're on an adventure. You're in a new place. Maybe you go to a museum, maybe you go to the zoo, maybe you go to some local shops that you just wouldn't have seen otherwise. You're meeting new people. Especially in America, like you said, with how vast the cultural spectrum is in America. You go to a different state or even just a few towns over, you're going to meet entirely different people than you might know from your hometown or city or neighborhood. I think that's really important and really cool. When I went to Florida a couple years ago, I think you'll appreciate this. I went to this pizza parlor. Everyone in my group, I was kind of with a family group, and everyone was going to these giant like seafood restaurants. And I just wanted some pizza, man, but I didn't want to order anything. I wanted to go to some place unique. And I found this little hole in the wall pizza place. It was about the size of, the whole place was about the size of a studio apartment in California. And so very, very, very small, like almost like a closet, apart from the kitchen area, but that was very small as well. They had a fatback TV that was playing the original Transformers movie on DVD, maybe even VHS, and they had garlic as a pizza topping available, and that was the best pizza I've ever had in my life. I got it with garlic cloves on it, and it was delicious, and I was so glad I went there and just got to engage with those people, So I think the fact that you're introducing people to cities at a local level like that, kind of like a grassroots kind of thing where people can really get down and enjoy the lifestyle that each town provides. That's a lot of value. There's a lot of value in that. That's really cool.
No, thank you very much. And actually, the funny thing is, you mentioned pizza. Every place I travel to, I try to try pizza there, because that's like one of my favorite foods.
That's awesome. Do you put that on your blog?
I actually ask people. That's like one of the final questions I ask them is, "Where's the best pepperoni pizza in your town?" So.
Man, I need a question like that for my podcast. Some kind of like consistent, out of the blue question to tie things together. I gotta think of something. I'll think of something by the end of the episode, and I'll ask it to you. That's what I'll do.
That sounds great.
Are you doing dad stuff? You need a minute?
Oh yeah, hold on one second. Sorry about that.
It's all good, bro.
You want food? Fine. Okay, let me Sorry, dude.
No, it's all good, man. I understand completely.
Like, I actually recorded
I can relate.
I recorded 2 episodes this morning, and I actually took her to a daycare place, so that way she would be taken care of.
Right. You want to wrap up here in a few minutes, then?
Yeah, let me just get her a little snack, and then we'll begin.
Okay, take as much time as you need, man. I understand.
Hey, I'm almost finished. Let me give you panda cookies, and then I know you're hungry. Okay. Here's panda cookies. That way you'll be happy. Okay, no, don't eat them upstairs, though. Okay, go eat your panda cookies. Go, go, go. Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
It's all good, man.
That's a great thing.
I can relate.
That's the great thing about the podcast is like you can edit it out. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm supposed to edit that out? No, I will. So on the note of food, have you eaten any particularly interesting things? Because, I mean, I just got back from China last month, and I ate some weird stuff, man. What's the most interesting thing you've eaten while traveling, if anything comes to mind?
I'm actually pretty picky with food, so I don't venture out too much of my normal patterns. I will, I will occasionally do a little something, but nothing really sticks out in my mind. I will say,
where's the best pizza?
Oh, I love like Giordano's is one of my favorite in Chicago.
Oh yeah, but I have a box, Giordano's box, hanging on my kitchen wall.
Oh, there you go. But like my wife is more of a foodie than I am, and so I'm really big on getting her the experiences that she wants to have while we're traveling. Right. So we'll try to find whatever place that she wants to go, and I say, look, don't worry about me. If there's food that you want, we're going to go there. And if there's nothing that I can find to eat, because I eat like a 4-year-old sometimes, then I will just sit there, maybe have some bread, if they have a bread bowl or whatever, and then I'll have a beer. And then when we're done, you will find something for me. It's not a big deal.
There you go.
I mean,
that's very considerate of you. It sounds like you're very mindful of the fact that you're all going to kind of, when you travel together, you're going to get different things out of the trip, and there's going to be different things you're interested in. So you try to make sure that everybody gets to have the fullest experience.
Yeah, I think that's important because you don't want somebody feeling left out of the experience, and I try not to like spoil my kids too much in the sense where they think that they can rule what's going on, but I also want them involved, and I want them to feel like the vacation is their own, and that way they can enjoy the experience as well.
Right? They're not just being dragged along for a trip that's for you; it's for everybody involved.
Yeah, exactly. And so,
that's
like
important.
Our kids, they've been traveling since they were 6 weeks old each. That's when they both went on the first flight. And a lot of people over the years have said, "Oh, I have to wait till my kids are older before I go on vacation because they're not going to remember it or whatever." And it's like, you know what? Yeah, they probably won't remember it because guess what? They're a kid. But if you wait too long, they're going to be a teenager and they're not going to want to go on the trip with you anyways. So If you just wait for that sweet spot of like 7 to 12, you've wasted a lot of years and a lot of opportunities to bond and just have like amazing memories. Even if you're the only one having that memory, you're missing out on a lot. And so I just say, you know what, just go and you'll be surprised what kids remember and what they don't. And
I feel like they remember everything. It's just a matter of what they know they remember consciously. It's going to have an impact on them regardless.
Sure. And then on top of that, like, you know what, even if they don't actually remember themselves, you'll have pictures. And so you'll have pictures of them at these locations. And I mean, we were, like I said, when my son was 26 months old, we went to Paris, and I guarantee you he doesn't remember everything that went on there. But it was like, even now, right now, I'm totally smiling just remembering him chasing all the pigeons outside of the Louvre.
I can imagine, man. Absolutely.
And it was just such a fun thing watching them travel and do that. And the same thing with my daughter. Like I took her on the first solo trip, just me and her, when she was, 22 months old. And I was a little scared. I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into because she's definitely all about mama. And, by taking her on that trip, it created like a really fun moment for us. And just, we went to go see a Milwaukee Bucks game, and she basically fell asleep on my shoulder, like at the game. And it was just like so fun.
Right. And that's something that even, that you're not going to forget, that like has an impact on her, has an impact on you, that like deepens your relationship in a new way. It's adventuring together. I take my daughter with me on hikes for the same reason. She'll be 3 in October. She's not really going to remember that, but
yeah,
it's just doing things together and living life together, trying new things together.
Exactly. So it sounds like you're on the right path, man.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Sounds like you are on a phenomenal path.
Oh.
I thought of a question. I thought of a good kind of out of the blue question to ask.
Sure.
Yes. From here on out, everyone's going to hear this question. You're the first, so this is an important moment in the history of the podcast.
Okay, I better not mess it up.
Okay. Yeah. No pressure. What's your favorite breakfast food and why?
Let's see. I would say it's hard to narrow it down because pancakes are awesome, waffles are awesome. The donuts there's such a variety of them.
That's true. You can be as vague or as specific as you would like to.
I would have to say donuts, just because pancakes, you're going to get a little bit of flavor differences between, the different types of pancakes. Waffles, you got Belgian waffles versus like things more like Waffle House, right? You got all those, like a little bit of variety, but I think donuts, there's such a huge spectrum of the different types of donuts that you can have so many different amazing experiences with them.
Absolutely. That's a whole food pyramid right there.
Yeah.
Donuts, different kinds.
And then and nowadays, there's so many gourmet donut places that are just really kind of popping up everywhere. And like one of the old school gourmet places that I went to was in Portland, and now they actually have a location in Denver from a few years ago that I remember seeing. It's called Voodoo Donuts. And
I've heard about Voodoo Donuts. Weirdly enough, I've heard about them.
Yeah, there's good reason. They have just all sorts of different types of donuts, and you go in there, it's just really this eclectic place that it's just a really cool vibe that is definitely not Winchell's. It is, or it's definitely not Dunkin' Donuts. There's like a really cool vibe there. All the donuts are they have ones that are like almost like the size of your head.
Wow!
Like all these different cool flavors, and they have just really unique names, and it's a total experience. You will wait in line a little bit if you go at the wrong time, but if you see the line, just stick with it. It's totally worth checking out Voodoo Donuts.
When are they open? Because my mindset is if it's early enough in the morning, donuts are technically a breakfast food, but I can't convince myself that eating a donut is a good idea at 8 a.m. It has to be like nighttime, and when the animal comes out and I'm ready to just feast on something, and then maybe I'll go get a box of donuts and eat like 4 of them.
Oh, they're totally popular. They're open pretty much all day and into the evening, because if they were just doing it during the morning, people wouldn't be able to get through the whole line and be able to get donuts.
Right, it's too popular.
Yeah.
So there's one in Portland, and there's one where?
Denver.
Denver. Okay, Denver's closer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to Denver. I'm gonna try these donuts, and you know how I'm gonna do it? I'm gonna use RewardExpert. I'm gonna try to sync up my hotel with my flight with a credit card. I'm gonna stay there for a couple days. I'm gonna use your service. I'm going to try to do it as affordably and as wisely as possible. And that makes me very grateful for this conversation, because I need to try a donut that's as big as my head.
Exactly. And when you do, make sure you tag me, because I want to see that. I want to make sure I see that photo.
Will do, man. I'll write a whole blog post about it.
Perfect.
It'll be a whole experience.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you for coming on. Do you want to kind of not reintroduce yourself, but kind of plug your stuff for a second?
Sure. Yeah. So again, I'm Lee. We're starting the We Travel There podcast. It brings you into all the local tips and tricks of the cities that you're going to travel to. And as a way to make sure you can travel, use RewardExpert.com. We have a lot of great tools to help you earn miles and points, so that way you can travel for free, have awesome experiences, and create memories that are going to last a lifetime.
Awesome. Thank you again very much for coming on. I think this was an incredibly valuable conversation, just the amount of insight and information that you provided for the listeners. I really appreciate that. And I hope to send plenty of people your way. Guys, the links to everything Lee has mentioned, everything he's working on that I have access to will be in the description. Stay tuned for the We Travel There podcast. Check out Reward Expert. Check out his blog. And it was great talking with you, Lee. Hope to do this again sometime.
Sounds great. And I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll talk to you soon.